All right, let's speak now to Tebogo Kasa, the chairperson of Public Interest South Africa. Thank you for being with us. The UK, in fact, moved first on this, and I spoke to Treasury a while ago. It seemed like government was really looking for the tools to deal with a company like Bain implicated in the Zondo report, but we were really grappling with that. This move, is it a victory for accountability?
It is a victory for accountability, but it is partial victory. It is interesting that government, as you put it, was looking for tools when it long had a tool such as the restricted supply database for years. And the UK government doesn't even have such a tool that government has, and it was mysteriously, miraculously now found. But here's the point. I think government was shamed into acting by the fact that the UK government has moved to ban Bain for 3 years. After the campaign by Lord Peter Hain and Arthur Williams himself in the UK. But nevertheless, it is a welcome move.
Yeah, so we could have done it much earlier, basically.
Absolutely. And it just, is it lethargy or just paralysis within government? It is really appalling that we took so long, especially if you consider the fact that Bain had long been found wanting during the Nugent Commissions, by the Nugent Commission. And after that, government ought to have acted against Bain. But instead, what happened? Bain went on to rake in millions and millions of money from this government or from this economy, despite the fact that going back then, I can't remember if it's 2014 when that commission said, going back then, government ought to have acted swiftly. And it's not only that, to the extent that Bain was allowed to continue, we just don't know how much other wrecking ball or other areas of government it has been able to recover with this wrecking ball. And we're still paying as the taxpayers, as citizens of this country.
Yeah, Bain paid back the money that it received from SARS, but when you look at what happened to SARS, the consequences there financially, economically are huge, basically gutted, according to some people who have looked at it. In South Africa, do you agree with me? There seems to be this standard that's become the mark that a person, an individual or a company has to be found guilty in a court of law of fraud or corruption. Otherwise, we feel pretty helpless. And I guess it is complicated if there hasn't been a firm legal finding. Was that the issue all along?
Absolutely spot on, Francis. I'm smiling because you're basically just taking words out of my mind, not my mouth. And the reason is, we just have to look at what is happening with Msebenzi Zwane. Yes, yesterday he was indicted. Was it yesterday or the day before? He was indicted. But what does Parliament do? Okay, we're okay with you stepping aside. You can still continue earning your salary. You don't have to resign now. But we should actually be able to shame people into doing what is right. In other words, you're quite right that this notion that somebody has to be found guilty first before there's action taken or they are removed should stop. And it is at the heart of why people continue to do wrong, and which is why Bain took so long for it to be shamed into action. In fact, what should actually be happening is that people ought to themselves be offering or tendering to resign or to step down without being charged. But here we are, we've got a Minister of Education, I'm going off tangent, we've got a Minister of Education who's been found to want to suppress a report on the shenanigans with the, is it NLC, not NLC, NSF, I think, funds.
NSF,
and yes, and he ought ordinarily, in any other democracy, he ought to be stepping down, or if not, the president has actually ought to be asking him to step down. And Bain, it is not only the monies that they've stolen and allegedly repaid to SARS, the fact that they have wrecked SARS, the fact that they've caused the kind of damage to SARS, they've made sure that SARS capacity or capabilities to effectively collect taxes or to guide against those who evade paying taxes was rendered, was harmed. And to the extent that that happened, we just don't know how much, in terms of opportunity cost to this economy, we have suffered, because SARS, once SARS has been hobbled, it means the fiscus was robbed of potential revenue.
It's interesting what you're saying because, and I don't mind you going off on a tangent, you're saying there's sort of an inertia or a lack of action across many sectors in South Africa. But the fact that Bain harmed the country, are you saying that was good enough to take action long time ago, even if Bain has not been categorically found guilty of fraud and firm corruption? The fact that it hurt SARS substantially was enough.
Absolutely. I mean, SARS ranked amongst the top, if not the top three, if not the top at the time, tax collecting agency in the world. It was a model that was emulated or even praised globally. And to the extent that even it had to go on an attrition, which was not justified, where it had to get rid of experienced individuals who some had to be shunted to lower positions, and some had been left to do nothing. In other words, we are now paying people for not actually what we employed them to do. And to the extent that even those who were made to leave, and the courts even found in their favor and asked current commissioner to re-employ them, we're still fighting for their re-employment. And it is bizarre that the kind of disjuncture, the kind of disconnect that we see happening with SARS Commissioner Ed Cruzeta now not being able to respect a court order, respect the fact that a commission of inquiry such as the Zondo Commission, a commission of inquiry such as the Nugent Commission, has found the conduct of Bain and SARS to have been unworthy of being defended. And it is quite shocking that for as long as we have the likes of Edward Sita seemingly defending the wrongful act of Bain, we will have condonation of wrongdoing, and therefore don't expect anytime sooner that people will resign out of their own volition.
All right, an interesting stance. Finally, is Bain being singled out here? Some people feel like that. McKinsey, also KPMG did face consequences, probably first. We saw quite significant consequences there. But McKinsey has apologized and it has announced measures that it'll take to do better in future. Is it all about the way the companies respond?
Look, by no stretch of imagination are we asking for companies to be litigated into penury or being stopped doing business, but they must do right by the country. McKinsey, the rest of other top four, big four auditing firms and others, including SAP, they must be called to account and make sure that they actually are made to do good and right by South Africa. In fact, it shouldn't be the last we hear of Bain, because we need to be looking at Bain to actually, for reparations. Bain has dislocated the lives, dislocated families. You know, we've got Arthur Williams being uprooted from his country of birth and his country of first preference to now be living in exile. And to the extent that we still don't know how much Bain's action, not only Bain, McKinsey and others, have cost in terms of the cost of the economy, we must actually try and get to quantify that and ask them to pay back that money. And in fact, as you would perhaps know, it is not out of their own money, because they probably have got insurance or liability insurance that would cover such monies. But you must make them to feel the pain. Because if it was you and I, an SME, you'd be litigated to the ground.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Public Interest South Africa Chairperson Tebogo Kaas.